the guru of Squad Double Zero, the assassin like no other. Yes, I'm the best at what I do. One of the most notorious in the YouTube anime and manga community. Don't doubt the infamy, please. Yes, I'm back with another deathmatch, and I know it's been a month or two. It's been a while, and I actually had this deathmatch thought out before I went on hiatus. There's reasons, as not horrible personal reasons, just reasons I went on hiatus and whatnot. And I was just like, you know what, I'll get to this video when I get to the video. Very interesting, might you say the least, as you could probably see, between two people who make sense, but two people you might not have thought of. So without further ado, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is the 23rd, or just offhand thought, the 23rd death match that yours truly has conducted on this channel. Coming in from the left side, he hails as eventually the king, the emperor of the Fire Nation, the Fire Lord. Comes in at a very young age, well, relatively young age, very skilled at what he does, one of the best characters, I might add, one of the best developed characters. He is none other than Zuko, the Scarred One. And coming from the right side, I think, a manipulator of fire because of his mutant qualities. Someone who hails from down under in Aussie, Australia, for those who don't catch it. Someone who is associated with quite a few groups, but more prominently the Brotherhood of Mutants, excuse me. He is none other than Pyro. Let us begin. Yes, two fire users. But fundamentally different at the same time. For those who know my videos, they know exactly how I get down, but in case you happen to be new or not fully aware of my format, I will introduce it once again. As always, I begin with 3 categories and a few different subcategories under each category. We start off with, as always, the attack category, and under the attack category we have physical strength, combat speed, which is not the same as transit speed, don't get it twisted, techniques, and destructive capacity / power. Now when it comes to physical strength, this is a very interesting case, because neither of these fighters relies on physical strength, okay? When it comes to Zuko is very physically fit, to say the least. He is trained in martial arts from a young age, and he specifically is the Fire Lord's son. Now, while being the Emperor's or the Fire Lord's son doesn't give him an innate advantage as it does in other worlds and universes, he literally lives up. Him and his sister Azula live up to the title. Okay, they live up to being, they're monsters in their own rights. Okay, so he is definitely above average, to say the least, when it comes to physical strength. It doesn't mean he's a behemoth, a Hulk, or anything like that, but he's strong, very strong, specifically for his age. When it comes to Pyro is practically a normal average guy. We're not talking about he doesn't rely on physical strength. He doesn't. One of the things about it, though, is he can manipulate fire up to, I believe, if I'm not mistaken from research, 100 to 150 feet with his pyrokinesis to lift heavy objects, but that requires concentration. And with a fighter like Zuko, he ain't gonna give that many opportunities to be rocking like that. So with the edge, I have to give it to Zuko. Now, as far as in the combat speed, the speed category, Zuko is quick. He's quick, not simply swift in the sense of, I'll get to his reaction time, but he literally fights quick. He fights aggressively, he fights fast, he fights hardcore. Now, he's not moving at a phenomenal rate of speed. Again, this is definitely above average human speed, though, as he is a trained martial artist. Not trained in a extensive amount, you know, in let's say karate, taekwondo, judo, anything of those natures, boxing, whatever, mind you. But he is trained, because if you watch his movements, they are particular movements that almost look like kata. okay? And it helps with his firebending. The two go hand in hand. He does more so martial arts moves than pretty much anyone else, except for pretty much anyone in his family, and of course Avatar Aang, and any of the other avatars that have been showcased to use fire. When it comes to Pyro, again, a very average dude. He does not rely on speed. Doesn't mean he can't move. Doesn't mean he's a sloth. He's a turtle. But he just is an average dude with a phenomenal ability. So in that consideration, because the way, and I'll get more so to the fighting style of Zuko later, but because of the way Zuko fights, he relying a lot on speed, I have to give the edge to Zuko. So Zuko's up 2-0 to Pyro. Now in terms of techniques, this gets very interesting. I would have to give it the edge to Pyro. Here's why. Zuko, he's shown various fire bending, whether it be through punches and kicks, pretty sure he can use the mouth, and just various things with fire bending, but his main thing is fire bending, right? When it comes to it, he can also use swordplay. He's quite skilled. He was shown as, it was the water, I forget the exact name because it's been a minute since I actually researched or watched that episode. But yeah, he comes in as the water spirit, if I'm not mistaken, something along those lines. And so he's skilled at swordsmanship. When it comes to Pyro, what he lacks in physical statistics, stats, he makes up for in his manipulation of fire, his control of fire. Very skilled. When you look at it, as I said before, he can use his pyrokinesis to lift heavy objects. He himself, while unlike Zuko, who uses firebending to actually produce fire, because of the will or something along those lines, Pyro himself cannot literally produce it, but literally he manipulates it. Any flame, okay, he often has like a tank, a flamethrower or something along those lines on his back, and he's got like two hoses, and he uses that to produce the fire. And in doing so, he's able, pyrokinesis and various other pyrotechnic skills. Not to mention that if Zuko, because he's a fire, throwing fire at him, he can control that fire as well, so he can turn it back on him. I forget all the specific details, but being so that he's so skilled in pretty much all uses of fire except for the production of fire itself, I'd have to give the edge to Pyro, specifically in this battle with fire users. So it's 2-1. Pyro. Yeah, Pyro over Zuko, the techniques, in case I screwed that up. So it's 2-1 Zuko when it comes to destructive capacity. This is very interesting. I would say they're very much even. Because again, neither actually relies. They both more so rely on accuracy, I won't say necessarily the lethal nature. I know Zuko would rather beat you into submission. He's not out here looking to kill, so to say. He will kill if he needs to, but he's not out here looking to kill. Pyro is looking to defeat his opponent by any means necessary, if you consider it. It doesn't mean he's going to just start brawling and throwing blows and nothing like that if he doesn't need to. But pretty much when it comes to fire usage, he will beat you. Just simple as that. Neither of them, Zuko doesn't, he's not his father in the sense that, or his uncle Iroh. They definitely produce way stronger fire. Even when it showcased the solar eclipse. I'm trying to remember how it looked. Was the solar eclipse pretty much when the sun, the 100 years when the sun was at its strongest? We clearly saw what Lord Ero and Fire Lord Ozan could do. Zuko wasn't at that level. No, he produced some strong attacks, but they went nowhere near what those two gents, them two double and triple OGs could pull out. Okay. When it comes to Pyro, again, it depends on he can extend the intensity of the flame, but again, he needs the flame source. So if, say, his device gets busted, and say he runs out of fiery source, he would rely on Zuko's fire. So they would pretty much be balanced out. So when it comes to the attack category, I gotta give the edge to Zuko. In terms of defense, the defensive category, there's once again 4 subcategories: reaction time, durability, stamina, and agility. When it comes to reaction time, this is pretty basic. It goes down to Zuko. It's Zuko. Again, he fights, although he fights with an aggressive style, he fights fast. He fights very fast. It's some of the fastest fighting you will see in the series, okay? Amongst the benders. Many benders are more stationary. Even Toph, as gifted as she is as a earthbender, as a master of earthbender, she is more stationary. Okay, not saying she can't move, but she's quite stationary. Aang is more fluid. Both Ozan, Iro, Azula, pretty much a lot of the top tiers may, just as fluid or more so than Zuko. But Zuko he fights fast. He has to, because unlike Azula, his sister, he's not a prodigy. His reaction time has to be on point because of who he fights, which are top tier benders. Doesn't matter if they're in case of airbender, waterbender, firebender, earthbender. When it comes to Pyro, this dude's a normal dude. It doesn't mean he's a joke. It doesn't mean he can't dodge. But going up against someone who specifically fights a speed, aggressive based style, he ain't quite on that level. Okay, I'll drop, because I was about to mention something in defense of him, but I'll mention that in durability. So the reaction time goes to Zuko. When it comes to durability, surprisingly enough, it's actually Pyro. Here's to why. Zuko, while he is a firebender, he is a normal dude. He is susceptible to damage. Okay, he's a normal young man. He's susceptible to damage of all kinds. And while he can take a punch, he ain't, no tank in that department. Doesn't mean he's, soft, but he's not gonna take a lot of damage, especially when it comes to fire and whatnot. When it comes to Pyro, he has a flame retardant suit, meaning fire doesn't really affect him, as well as, he's a mutant who manipulates fire. He's used to dealing with fire, so the fire won't affect him quite as much. So because he doesn't have to, deal with it as much, it may limit his mobility, but he's good with the blows. So in that category, in the durability category, I have to go with Pyro over Zuko. It's 1-1. Stamina. It's very interesting. In this, I would have to go with Pyro, and here's to why. Pyro doesn't really, because of his lack of mobility, because he himself is not exerting a lot of effort as does Zuko, he would very easily not get as tired as quickly. Okay, doesn't mean the damage he takes doesn't take a toll, but he's not exerting a whole lot to begin with, so he's good to go for a long while. Doesn't mean he can fight for days upon days, but he can fight for a good while. You understand? When it comes to Zuko's thing is to get it over as quickly as possible. Doesn't mean he has garbage stamina, but what it means is it gives his opponent a longer time to wear him down. If he's worn down, he's shown that he's not the greatest hand-to-hand combatant. Okay, he's shown pretty good skills with he's shown legitimate skills with swordsmanship, but when it comes to hand-to-hand combatant, he's not the greatest. He's okay, but against a guy like Pyro, who's also a good fire user, running out of juice is a no-go. So, although Pyro, you could say, well, he doesn't have his flames. Again, he's experienced enough to pull something out of his hat. So, with that being said, gotta go stamina with Pyro. When it comes to agility, this is without question Zuko. Again, this goes back to him as a firebender that is proficient in his movements and his martial arts. You could see him flipping around and moving. And in his battle against Azula, this was executed phenomenally. Okay, the various quick quick steps and whatever else he was able to do. Pyro, you don't get much of that. You just don't. And he doesn't usually need it. So, gotta give it to Zuko. So in the defense category, they pretty much balance each other out, which shouldn't be a shock. When it comes to the third category, and this is a category that people don't tend to pay enough attention to, it's the strategy category. There are 3 subcategories underneath this: location, fighting style, and fighting IQ. When it comes to location, there really isn't so much an issue here. Neither one has an advantage anywhere they go. Okay? Zuko can produce fire anytime. I've already explained to a great length about the manipulation of Pyro and his flames. So we're good. When it comes to fighting style, this makes it very interesting. Here you have with Pyro, I wouldn't say a completely stationary person, but someone who doesn't rely on mobility versus someone who does. So that always makes for a very good fight. Very interesting fight. Pyro tends to rely on long-range techniques. Somewhat middle range, but he's not too good in a close range because he starts getting wrecked. Just keep it real. When it comes to Zuko, he's more so specifically close range, but to a good sense with the mid-range because of his firebending. He's a firebender. And he's also, like as I mentioned on a few occasions in this video, he's a legitimate swordsman. He doesn't use the swordsmanship too much, but it is possible, if need be, go into battle with it. Specifically, if he finds out about, if they were in the same world, he finds out this dude is literally a manipulator of fire, he would know that I might have to bring something else to the table. Okay, see what I'm saying? So, it's a matter of who gets the upper hand first. Can Pyro keep Zuko at a distance, or can Zuko get it to the inside? Because if Zuko gets it to the inside with his quickness, with his speed, with his agility, and with his reaction time, and with that sword, if need be, he can cut up Pyro. He can beat up Pyro. But if Pyro can keep him at a distance, Zuko's going to tire out. And he's going to be the one to take that L. Just keep that FYI. Usually talk about that at the end of the video, but just throw that out there now. Last, but certainly not least, and arguably the most important, fighting IQ. This is a very interesting one, because normally I have a more conclusive result in this one, but let me just break it down like this. Zuko is experienced, without a question. He's fought various types of fighters, various types of benders. Okay, he's fought all the attributes. Zuko is a top tier firebender, and with that being said, his IQ, because of the way he fights, and he actually had to train Aang in a very, very short amount of time. I mean, very short amount of time. And the fact that he was able to get Aang to see shows that he understands. He's very perceptive. And it's not just so much in his personality, it carries over into the way he fights. Again, because he's a speed-based fighter, and he's not a tank, he's strong, but he's not really a strength-based fighter. He has to have things moving on a quick cylinder. Pumping, the pistons got to be pumping quite well. So I'd say he has a high, not astronomically high, but I'd say a pretty high. So I'd say above a decent, above a solid to a high fighting IQ. When it comes to Pyro is massively experienced. He's fought all kinds of dudes, and I mean all kinds of dudes. Specifically, when you just his encounters with the X-Men alone, you're gonna have just the X-Men alone. A few that I can think of off the top of my head are all kinds of opponents. Okay, he's won some fights, he's lost some fights. He's been amongst teams, he's been solo. He's dealt with many things. His fighting experience is definitely going to give a superior edge to that of Zuko. How his fighting IQ is, it's decent. It's decent. His skill, the fact that he's so skilled with his manipulation, the fact that while he isn't the greatest combatant, I mean, there's a lot of things he leaves on the table when it comes to a throwdown. He can still compete with some very powerful opponents. So with that being said, his fighting IQ is pretty decent to solid, to say this. It's decent to solid. But overall, who do I have as the winner? Early on, you know, just with the attack, it seems that Zuko has definitely superiority when it comes to it. I mean, his fighting IQ is higher. His speed, his style, seemingly is better than Zuko. I mean, better than Pyro's. But Pyro matches it. You know, it's a great balance because he would keep him at a distance, so it would make the fight very interesting. While Pyro doesn't necessarily have the greatest intelligence, doesn't necessarily have the greatest, you know, he has like almost no speed when it comes to a guy like Zuko. His durability and his stamina would make this a very difficult fight for a dude like Zuko. And his experience makes it a very, very interesting one. Overall, I would give the edge to Zuko, and here's why. Very, very simple reason. While Pyro would push him extremely well, because Zuko is able to deal with various styles of bending, how do I put it this way, it's different. It gives him the ability to cut through the experience of the massive superior experience of Pyro. Here's why. Bending can come from all directions. Bending sees, even amongst benders, there are various styles. Even amongst firebenders, there are 3 to 5 different styles. Earthbender, 3 to 5 different styles. Waterbender, same thing. You know, and he hasn't experienced many airbending styles, so I can't really say that besides Aang. But every bending style has at least 3 to 5 different styles. And he's been able to adequately deal with each of them. Okay? Pyro, not so much. When he is put at a disadvantage, he gets that work put on him. That's the main reason. As long as Zuko is able to read the situation and is able to not allow Pyro a good advantage in the distance game, he wins this fight. Again, it'd be a very difficult fight. If he can figure it out early, he's good. If he cannot figure it out early and he sits around and plays too much, he takes that out. Overall, I give Zuko the W. Unexpected one to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me your thoughts on this matchup. And until next time, y'all, have a beautiful day, beautiful night, peace. And I promise y'all, I will be firing off more death matches, way more consistently. I'm being serious with it, popping up, because I got plenty. Some very interesting ones, to say the least. Alright, y'all. Peace.